What's up, everybody? Metal Dave here, along with my co-host Jason McMaster, bringing you another episode of the Talk Louder podcast. Today, we are joined by drummer Shawn Duncan. Shawn is currently a member of L.A. Guns. He is out on the road with them, well, as they support the Leopard Skin record, brand new record from L.A. Guns. They just completed the first leg of the tour. We caught him at home on a break. He'll be out on the road again shortly, teaming up with Tom Kiefer on some dates. That's always a great double bill. And spent some time today talking about his previous band, Odin, big-time band on the Hollywood scene in the mid-'80s. And he did a number of things in between that we touched on as well during the conversation. He's the last member of L.A. Guns that we've been waiting to get on the show, so we've covered them all. His brother is Jeff Duncan, who plays guitar for Armored Saint. So we've been going down the checklist, and we were happy to have Shawn today.
Talking about about Odin and them having some quite a footprint, whether it be just prior or and definitely after the release of Decline of the Western Civilization, the metal years.
Yes.
And we talked he gave us some feelings about with Dave's prying on what was happening during those moments and that time, and interesting tidbits about things that changed fairly drastically by the time the movie was filmed and its release. And we talk about that with Shawn as well. And, him and his brother's band, DC4, had come through. He mentions that. And our buddy Sean Weingartner is a giant Odin fan and is friends with all the Duncan brothers. And he is also a big DC4 fan. And I don't know if Sean was a little bit instrumental. Sean Weingartner was instrumental in bringing DC4 through Texas or not. Maybe because Sean is industrious. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the times that I've gotten to spend with any Duncan has been fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah, born and raised in Hollywood. So that's interesting, too, because as we talk in the show, the Sunset Strip, the scene obviously exploded and was a big deal. But a lot of the bands that you heard of came from elsewhere. There was naturally there was a number of homegrown bands, but it's really, I think, kind of unique when you talk to someone who actually went to, junior high school and then started working the clubs that were basically the neighborhood clubs at the time.
That's my favorite part of this interview, I think.
Yeah, I think so,
is
too.
The realization of they grew up in Glendale and they're working. They're in high school and they're in a band and they're trying to, they're scraping to play well-deserved shows in clubs before they were of drinking age.
Yeah. Really interesting perspective through the eyes of someone that grew up in that area and then eventually started working the clubs and seeing things like Motley Crue on a Wednesday night at a club. Really interesting perspective. And he's made a career out of it, so hats off to him. Really nice guy. I bumped into him at the L.A. Guns show in Austin, Texas recently. He was working the merch booth, and I went up and said hello and asked him if he'd be on the show, and he said he'd be happy to. So we got him on the show today. Shawn Duncan from L.A. Guns on the Talk Louder podcast. Hey, man, thanks for joining us. I saw you 2 weeks ago in Austin, Texas with L.A. Guns, and I know you were out for about a month with the band, and you're currently at home on a short break before going out again. Tell us, what do you do when you come home? I know stuff has got to be piled up and waiting for you, and what's it like coming home after being on the road, and then how much do you have to get done before you take off again?
Well, needless to say, I've got a short list of honeydews that have compiled over the 6 weeks I was gone. So it's mostly yard stuff, to be honest with you. It's mostly yard work that I gotta do because some stuff got out of hand because it like the grass in the back grew massively and that kind of stuff. So, it's the normal home stuff.
Are you in Nevada?
No, I live in L.A.
You're still in California. Okay, all right.
Yeah. Are you were you born and raised in L.A.?
Yes.
Wow. Okay. So you've been there the whole time, and you've seen the whole thing, and
Oh yeah. We saw everything.
Yeah.
Well, there's just a lot of people. The reason I apologize if I offended you for thinking you were in Nevada. That's one of the other Duncans, isn't it?
Yeah, my brother Jeff lives in Vegas.
Yeah.
So does Phil, right?
No, I think Phil is still out. Oh, Phil Lewis. Yes,
Yeah.
Phil Lewis is definitely in Nevada.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. A lot of guys have moved out to Las Vegas or Nashville or Sean's holding down the fort in L.A., keeping it old school. So tell us, you were born and raised in L.A. Take us all the way back to the beginning. You obviously come from a musical family. Your brother Jeff plays guitar in Armored Saint. You have another brother whose name escapes me. He's also a musician. Tell us about your other brother. And then just growing up in L.A. and getting acclimated to the scene and starting to be a working musician.
I think he wants you to talk about Odin a little bit.
Eventually, yeah. But
That's basically your family band, right? Odin is kind of you and your brothers, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, that was basically the first band. First band I was ever in was with Jeff, was with my brother, in a band called the Termites. And that was in junior high school.
That's a great band name, actually.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And that band over the years morphed into Odin. It's like it was one continuous path, because it was always me and Jeff, and then it turned into Tempest, and then it turned into Odin. And that was in high school. I was in high school. Jeff and Aaron, who's the bass player in Odin, went to Wilson, and I went to Glendale High, and we got Randy. And I mean, when we recorded the first little EP, Caution, that was Jeff and Aaron were in junior high school, and me and Randy were in high school. So basically, that was the beginning of everything, because that was around I want to say it was in 82 that we recorded that, 83, somewhere, 82. Makes more sense to me. And back then, like we were always pretty industrious, because we made our own record, and we would go down to the Troubadour and solicit. Back then you had to have like a following, and you had to be able to prove what you could do. They'd give you a Tuesday night, and that's kind of how it was run.
It's like that everywhere, though.
Yeah, it should be.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
and back then, though, there was no pay to play. So you couldn't just get in, right? You couldn't just buy your way on a with a good headliner.
Right.
You worked your way up. And so we saw a lot of people and a lot of bands. So, but basically we were there from the beginning of the whole Sunset Strip heyday. I mean, I saw Motley Crue Wednesday night at the Whiskey. I saw Mickey Rat. I saw Rat. I saw Dante Fox, and before they were Great White, on and on.
Yeah.
We were all there,
Wow.
So, but anyway, that my father was a songwriter and an arranger. And we always had bands. He had that like top 40 band that he would play in. And so we always had musical instruments around us.
Okay.
He never forced us to do it, but when I was as little as I could remember, I was beating on pots and pans in my mom's Tupperware. And Jeff was playing my dad's little harmony acoustic guitar. So we gravitated to those things. And my brother Matt is a bass player now, but back then he was starting out on keyboards.
And
so
doesn't Matt have one of your dad's old basses? Is that right?
He has one of my dad's old guitars, and Jeff has the other one.
Oh,
I think
okay.
Matt has the Ventura, I want to say, an old Ventura and hollow body. And,
I just saw a video of your brother like showing off this really old kick-ass bass that I think he maybe just had back in the day that I may have thought was your dad's.
Yeah, something. I don't remember. My dad never had a bass.
Okay, all right.
So, but he was a guitar player, And like I said, he did arrangements and stuff. And then he wrote he had a really big hit in 1962 called "Let's Go," which you've heard at all the sporting events around if you've ever with the hand clap, pop, 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 let's go. Well, that's my dad's song.
Wow.
Yeah. Not to be confused with the Ramones song that has the same sort of.
Well, we sued the Cars, so because the Cars stole.
Oh wow,
too.
Yeah, they sure did. They did that exact riff.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, what they did is they used the hand clap, but they also used the guitar riff worn down. They like stripped it down and made it simpler. So, but it was the same guitar riff. So that's what happened there.
Well, I don't want to just like stall and talk about the Cars getting, suing the Cars. Everyone loves the Cars.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But what did you have to do to go about, hey, now you guys can't do that? What went down?
Well, it was basically handled by the publishers.
Oh,
the
right.
publishers went after them. And then when it was all done and said, when it was all over, basically my father and my uncle were paid. And that's kind of how it worked. And the same thing happened rather recently where Travis Barker stole it too. They used it was him and a bunch of rappers had written a thing and they used it in that, but they didn't ask for permission. So, and that was used on like one of the basketball video games and all kinds of stuff.
Right.
So now anytime that song's played, we get paid.
Right.
So that was, but that's basically my dad's song was that one. And then when I was a little kid, I remember going because he worked for Bones Howe, and Bones was basically Bell Records. And he did the Elvis special in 1971, I think it was, and he did the Fifth Dimension show. I remember going to the Fifth Dimension's rehearsal when I was a little kid, tiny little guy.
Whoa!
So it was wild. So we grew up around music. That's basically, getting back to the question is, we grew up.
I've got an old Fifth Dimension vinyl. Yeah, pretty cool, man.
Yeah, no, they were fun. They were great.
You mentioned at a very early age banging on pots and pans. I'm going to assume that you were drawn initially to drums. There wasn't a situation where you and your brother, like Jeff, started on drums and you started on guitar, and then you swapped a la Van Halen or anything like that.
No, we didn't. It was funny because I was always attracted to drums. And when I would see my dad play with musicians and they'd be set up in a living room or whatever, I was always like all about those, which was probably good for me. I'm sure once I finally got my own set, my brothers were probably happier too because I could beat up my drums instead of them. And I'm the oldest, so that's my job, man.
Right, of course. It comes with the territory. This is a cliched question, but people always enjoy the answer. Who were some of your drum heroes growing up? Who did you want to emulate?
Well, when I was starting out, we grew up listening to a lot of like Chicago and Gladys Knight and the Pips, a lot of R&B. And so that's definitely in the backside of my brain as far as like the way I play.
Right.
And then as I started to get into drummers on a personal basis, it was like I was really into Queen for a while, and I really liked Roger Taylor's playing. And then slowly got into, after that, I went into, I think the first record I ever bought was A Song Remains the Same. And then the second record I bought was Live Bootleg. And Joey Kramer, I always loved as a drummer.
Yeah.
I don't think he gets enough cred. Alex Van Halen, obviously, was huge. And then I discovered my brother showed up one day, he came in with Long Live Rock and Roll. And he goes, "You got to listen to this," right?
Yeah.
And we put it on. And I'd never heard Dio. I'd never heard Rainbow at that point. And he put on Kill the King. Mm-hmm. And he was like, "Listen to that singer." I'm going, "Fuck, listen to that drummer," right? So then I got really into Cozy Powell.
Yeah.
And I was also a big Journey fan, so I really like Steve Smith. So there's a whole bunch of like mishmashes of drummers that I glob onto, and every time I hear them play, I still dig it.
Yeah, yeah. That kind of produces the best results, right? Take a little from this and take a little from that, and be inspired by multiple genres. I mean, that's what makes a complete, well-rounded musician, regardless of whether it's drums or guitar or singing or whatever. You know, you can't be just on one lane. It helps if you've got all the ingredients mixed up, borrowing from different people.
Who do you feel like we're the first? Who do you feel like we're maybe the first innovators? Like, because drums was always just a background rhythm section. It was just like a beat, and it was usually brushes, and it was not meant to be so loud and
Right.
up front and really hard driving. It was really kind of just back ear percussion, right?
Yeah.
When do you think that sort of changed, and who, if you know names and years, that's great, but I think about it quite often, actually, about when did that switch. You can kind of pinpoint when guitars came up front,
Right.
and I don't know about drums. I don't know who was ever going to pat, and that's all they did all night long. When
Right.
did it turn into when did it turn into this big band and crazy where the drums were really out front?
Well,
do you think?
I think you can kind of, as far as rock music goes, you can kind of go straight to Keith Moon on there, because
Wow.
early Keith Moon, you got to figure the Who, the very first records that they were doing, he was already stepping out front with the way he played. You could go further back and go into like the Krupas but that's a whole different genre, right?
Right.
And as far as in like for rock and roll and hard rock in particular, I kind of have to go to Moon first.
Okay,
And then
that's a good one.
I think Moon and maybe Ginger Baker kind of like laid the groundwork, and then you got Mitch Mitchell and John Bonham, and it just took off from there.
Yeah. But you think
I
maybe 30s, 40s, and 50s, there was not anyone back then? I mean, when was Buddy Rich and, Krupas and those dudes starting to like really be the front guy? When did that? What years?
There's a lot of drummers that eventually became the big rock drummers that were really into the Krupa, like Carmine Appice was really into Gene Krupa.
Yeah.
And so those guys were in front. There's no doubt. The band, and Buddy Rich's band was the Buddy Rich band. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so was Krupa. And so those guys were probably the first like rock star drummers.
Okay. That's, that's what I was fishing for. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then it kind of opened the door for everybody else after that drums can go crazy. And then Moon kind of took it to the next level.
Yeah.
And
he took it to the next couple levels, I think.
Yeah, well, a lot of people don't know. I mean, they probably do, but Bonham was a big Keith Moon fan. He loved Keith Moon, and he was the only person other drummer that he allowed to sit behind his drum set.
Wow!
So Keith Moon was the only other drummer that John Bonham let sit behind his drum set. Do you think about that for a minute? Because they're two totally different players, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And but admired each other as players, which was very interesting.
Yeah, yeah. Take us back to Odin now. How old are you when you're playing the clubs in Hollywood with Odin? Are you still a teenager? Are you in your early 20s at that point?
No, we were teenagers, definitely. I mean, there was two incarnations of Odin. The first one started out when we were in high school, and we had a singer who eventually moved to go be with his girlfriend, and we got Randy, and that's when we morphed into the Odin that's known today. And at that point, we were I was in 12th grade, I'm going to say. Me and Randy are the same age, so me and Randy were in 12th grade, and Jeff and Aaron, I want to say, were in 9th or 10th. So it was high school. But prior, we had already played Gazaris, and we had already played the Troubadour on like a Tuesday and a Monday night, those type of things. And then when we did the Don't Take No, well, we did the Caution record right then. And then we did Don't Take No for an Answer, which was the one that really worked for us. And Odin's an interesting creature because over the years, it is somehow, when I'm on the road, I sign so much Odin stuff, it's stunned me.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that by us never really breaking the ceiling, the glass ceiling, by doing the movie and the one and the EP and then the Japanese album is scarce. It kind of gave us like this weird cultish underground kind of cred.
Yeah,
of course.
And it's really interesting to see now when I look back at it. I'm like, I sign this stuff all the time, and I can't even believe how often I'm signing stuff on the road all across the country. And now sometimes I'll see Jeff's signature already on it.
Yeah.
But basically, we were. I want to say I recorded "Don't Take No for an Answer." I think I went in and recorded it when I was 19, so Jeff was 17. Wow. And by the time it came out, I was 20 and Jeff was 19. So
when you're gigging around Hollywood and Odin is drawing a crowd, and what's the hierarchy at that time? Like, who are the big kings of the Sunset Strip? Who's in the middle, and who's just kind of getting started at the time that Odin is active?
Well, what happened with us was Chris Holmes was a very good friend of ours.
Ah.
And he would come to our rehearsals. Jeff credits him with teaching him about tone.
Wow.
And he kind of took us under his wing. He really liked the band. And what happened is W.A.S.P was playing the Troubadour and doing a blood drive. And at that time, we already were drawing fairly well anyway. And he put us as direct support on that show. It got tons of press. It was like radio, everything, right? And that took us into headliner status. That show moved us into Hollywood headliner status. After that, we were headlining when we were playing. And we still opened a few shows. We opened for, I think we did a show with Keel. We did a show with Armored Saint, Malice, and a few others playing at like bigger venues.
Yeah.
But for the most part, the hierarchy at the time, was W.A.S.P and who else was there? Might have been, I think Rat was already well on their way.
That's a pretty good.
What's that?
That's a pretty good soup that you just put together right there. Of like, it sounds like Metal Massacre 1 almost.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. All of the bands that you just kind of threw on the table, respectively. I mean, and at that age, even though, your record came when you're 20, you're 17, 18, 19, whatever, and you're already playing Troubadour, Gazaris, these infamous clubs that will never, the legend will not die of that, even though Hollywood's kind of a used sandpaper at this point, right? But right. It's important to, like, for example, here, if you're in a band and you're here in Texas, you're hearing about all that stuff, fanzines, tape traders, everybody's writing each other, licking stamps, it's 80, 81, 82, 83, whatever. It's that little, the door starting to, exactly. come open a little bit, bust at the seams, really. And you're starting to see these bands that you've only heard about do little van tours and whatever. And you're in Texas. If you're that age, 17, 8, right out of high school, or your senior year, and you're in a hard rock band or a metal band or whatever, the perspective is there, and you're seeing where it doesn't matter where. Texas, I only know just from experience, but you drive a couple 100 miles in any direction, it's going to be the same thing. There's not a Gazaris or a Troubadour or whatever to get a gig at, to even basically stomp the pavement until a Chris Holmes sees you, hears you, befriends you, and kind of lets you in the door and go, you kids can open the show. And next thing you know, you have a real gig on your own foot.
Right.
zero of that's happening in a lot of places. And I know that you know that and respect that. You know, it was backyard parties, keg parties. You know, hey, my parents are gone this weekend. We can set up in the living room. Are you sure you want to do that? You know, that shit was happening all over there for you as well. Yeah. But what's great is hearing someone from the old school talk about, and me and Dave never get tired of this shit. That's why we have a fucking podcast. And so, you know, and you guys had to work. Here you are, 17, 18. You're having to work to get in there. And it's not pay to play yet. So you can't just save your money and give it all to Blackie Lawless or give it all to Gazaris or what. Yeah, whatever. You can't buy you have to legitimately prove yourself somehow.
Yeah. Yeah, you had to draw.
You had to, well, in other words, you had to work for it.
Yeah, you did. Yeah. And that's what was going on. I mean, once we started headlining the strip as the strip, it became, a lot of people from other states started coming out. And so there was more competition. Yeah. A lot of the musicians that came out were, you know, people who really had a drive to make it, right? I mean, it takes a lot to move from your little town or your city or whatever to come out to where the action is, I guess you could say.
Well, Malice was from Portland, Black and Blue, all that, and they were trying to dig into what was happening. Keel is from the South or something, right? He came, I forget where he came from, Tennessee, maybe?
Yeah, well, then you had...
Poison came from Pennsylvania.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
All the way across the country.
Everyone's coming from somewhere to kind of dig their heels in and live in someone's garage until they can get a gig and eat, you know.
Exactly. And it was you got to remember, too, that the Sunset Strip, like what's known as the Sunset Strip, is really only 3.5 blocks long. You've been, you know, it's basically from the Viper Room, which was the Central at the time, to the Whiskey, the Roxy, Gazaris, and then down here you had the Troubadour, right? Yeah. And that was where it was all. That was where it was all happening. And
walkable.
I mean, what's that?
Walkable.
Yeah, and that's what they did. The streets were packed with people, club hopping and hitting the rainbow and passing out flyers. And that's basically like every night was like that. There wasn't a dead night. And once everything was in full bloom.
Were you guys still living with your parents? Were you living at home when you were working the strip?
Well, for the most part, yeah. I had moved out. Okay. Jeff was at home.
Okay.
But my father managed us for a while, and then my mother did our like fan club and merch stuff. So it was kind of a family.
That's
thing.
Fucking awesome.
Cool.
Yeah. Well, how far of a drive or a pick me up would like say Jeff had to go to get down there from your house?
Well, we all lived in Glendale. And,
that's not that far.
No, and Randy lived in La Crescenta. So we were all kind of in the same zone.
Oh, good.
And then we had a couple of friends. You know, we had Doug Campbell worked with us for a long time, and he had a van, and that was the Odin mobile. You know, that would take us everywhere. I can't tell you how many concerts and shows and people got in that van. I remember one night going out with Chris with Holmes. And we were first partying, and I was out. I was done, right? I was at that point, and he just grabbed me by the back of my jacket and picked me up to carry me out of the van, and he just said, "No, we'll have none of this, Duncan. You're a fucking rock star, right?" And dragged me into the party just to continue the party. So, I mean, that's what it was like every night.
I'm glad you survived.
Yeah.
Especially with Chris Holmes being your best friend.
I'm glad he survived.
No kidding.
Yeah, he was.
Did Odin tour around the States? Did you ever break out of California and do like van runs and with other bands? Or
we went out. We did a tour with Alcatraz when Steve Vai was in the band.
Oh,
right. And we played in Texas. We played in McAllen, which was an incredible show. We played in Austin. We got as far as Colorado And the tour was roaring along, and it got cut short because Vi went to join Ross Band.
Oh,
And so
right.
we're here, we are stuck. And I've often said that if that band made it to the other side of the country, it probably would have been a heyday for us. I think that would have done it, because we were doing really, really well, and the record was doing really well. So, but that's kind of the story. That's how everything worked with that band. Was like, there was a time we were supposed to play. We were working with Marshall Burl, Rat's manager.
Yeah.
And they wanted us to go to Japan with Rat. And Randy decided he wanted to go sing with Michelangelo. And I'm like, well, can't we just go to Japan, man? You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
So it was, but that's what happens. You get a bunch of, 20-year-olds, and it's hard. It's like herding cats, and we all had our own craziness, and it was just a lot of nuttiness. We had a lot of people, like Warrant opened up for us several times, because Jerry Dixon is Randy's cousin.
Oh, wow.
And so we had them open for us, and Tesla opened for us when they were City Kid. And I saw Poison's first show at the Troubadour. I saw the whole glam movement come in, all of that stuff. We were like I said, we saw Motley Crue on Wednesday night at the Whiskey. It was like, we saw it from the beginning, and we were there. We were kids. We couldn't drink. We were too young for that. But we grew up in it. We saw it. We were around it. It was pretty cool.
How did so? Talk a little bit about Decline of the Western Civilization, because a lot of people, I remember when that movie came out, I loved it because first of all, you just didn't see a film like that was sort of spotlighting the type of music that I loved. It just wasn't, you didn't have YouTube and 100 cables, 100 channels of cable TV and stuff like that. So it was very unique in that regard. And I loved the fact that it was highlighting a genre of music that I liked that really wasn't getting a lot of attention outside of radio. There wasn't a visual of bands unless you went and saw them or saw the pictures in the magazines or whatever. So at the time, I thought it was really unique and interesting. And it's one of those things that some people think it hasn't really aged well. Like, it's kind of become, or even it may have already been when it started, almost a parody. But I think it's great. It's always held a soft spot in my heart. And some of the bands that were in that movie are remembered specifically because of that movie, and because they never really broke out on radio or whatever. Yeah. So you guys were in that movie, as far as camera time, you guys got a fair amount of camera time in that film. So how do you look back on it now as a grown man all these years later? And, I saw a clip of just today, and they're interviewing you, and you said, all you want to get out of this is to be incredibly wealthy. And then you also in the same breath said, I just want my kids and my grandkids to know that this is what I did for a living, or something to that effect. So on the one hand, you kind of had these high in the sky dreams about being wealthy, but on the other hand, your perspective was also pretty grounded. It sounded like a cool thing that you just wanted to be remembered as somebody who gave it a try. So looking back on the movie now, how do you view it all these years later?
We weren't doing anything in that movie that everybody else in our position at that time weren't doing as well.
Right.
I look at it kind of like a reality TV version of our life at that point in time. How we got the gig was there was like a cattle call at IRS Records at Copeland's office, and we were one of the bands that was asked to come in, and we interviewed with I think it was Ian Copeland and Penelope and a few other people. Yeah. Anyway, they called us. They wanted us to be in the movie. We're like, oh, great, fun. So we ended up doing that the scene we did in the hot tub was actually at Penelope's house.
Oh, okay.
And we did it at her house. And back to Chris Holmes, Chris was with us at that shooting, right? And so we were drinking really heavy at the thing and just living it up and having a party. And Chris went to shoot his pool scene after leaving us. Like they shot our scene and then they went up to Chris's house to do that. So we're kind of responsible for his condition at that point in time. But it was shot the same day. And then the footage, the live footage we shot at Gazzari's, and they shot London first. And we didn't go on that night. We were there from like 2 in the afternoon, and it was about 2:30 in the morning when we finally went on.
Oof.
Brutal.
Everybody was fried and tired. The crowd was tired. When we wrapped and we were leaving, the sun was coming up. And that's kind of how that was shot. So when I look back at it, though, I just, it's a part of my life that really did happen, and it's pretty accurate as to what was going on. I mean, I ain't gonna hide from it. I'm glad that we didn't have cell phones and stuff back then, because God knows it would have been 50 times worse than that. So
damn right.
I think we got off good.
Damn right. So here's something about the movie. That movie, like Dave likes it, I don't really like it. Right. And here's why. There's a lot of people that I've befriended in it, and I love that. And the people that I've befriended, I feel completely blessed to have befriended them, because I became such a huge fan either before that movie or after, and I was like, oh fucking, anyway, there's that glowing and golden aspect about it.
Right.
The people that are in the movie, whether you knew them or not, like there's people in there like, well, what are you going to do if you don't make it? Oh, I'm going to fucking make it. Those motherfuckers never seen again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the people that we know and love and are fans of went on to either it just be legacy, like Odin. That's legacy stuff we're talking about.
Right.
Here we are, here you are decades later on tour with LA Guns as, a member of a legendary band, a legacy band that still writes and records kick-ass rock and roll songs, signing Odin shit. This is what I mean. There's it's not, I'm not worthy. Yes, you are. And here we are. So that's the fantastic part about that movie, is there's all this kick-ass shit in the movie that it's like, oh yeah, well, this is, the flower is going to bloom every time the sun comes up.
Right.
But all of those, and there's a shit ton of footage that I feel like had to be in there for the, like, oh my God, I can't watch.
Right.
The car crash shit that's in there, it has to be in there, because that's what I think that people laugh at, like a Spinal Tap thing.
Right.
Is people who are dressed to the nines that I think look ridiculous. Now, we can pause. Around that time, I probably looked ridiculous, but I'm not in the fucking movie. And they're saying, well, what if you don't make it? Oh, I'm gonna make it. And the crazy thing is, they just poof. The movie came out, nothing happened to those people.
That's one of the things. That's one of the things for me. That one of the standout moments of that movie is Odin, and it's because not only was your scene shot in a hot tub, but your singer was saying, was basically in response to that question, "What are you going to do if you don't make it?" or "What are your aspirations?" Or he said something to the effect of, I don't want to just be another band. I want to be as big as Zeppelin or the Beatles or the Stones. And then, is he also the guy that said, if I don't make it, I'll just kill myself?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, and I think some of that cringe factor is also what makes it memorable. you know?
And I will agree. I will agree with that. I'm glad the film happened. Trust me, I'm glad the film happened. But there's so many things in there that, to use your word, that are cringy that I'm just like, oh my God, he didn't. Oh my God, they just. Oh no, you know what I mean? It was a Jerry Springer. The whole movie was a fucking Jerry Springer.
It was like a reality TV show.
Yeah. You nailed it. Yeah.
Of young meddlers at the time. You know?
There were wise moments, and I think Lemmy sort of owned that part of the Wise moments.
His appearance. That's something that, but it's so Lemmy. I mean, he's been classic since day one. He never followed the trend. His aim was never, off target based on the trends or whatever. He always dressed the same. So whatever he said in that movie or what, I think I remember him doing an interview where he said that he sort of insisted that they shoot him standing on top of that Hollywood Hill or whatever, smoking a cigarette. He wasn't going to be caught in this club or do, anything crazy with a bunch of chicks or whatever,
Right.
Yeah. I mean, that's so Lemmy, just classic to the bone. Always was, always has been, always will be. So what was why did Odin end? Tell us about the end of Odin. Why end?
It was, oh, did I just do that?
You're fine.
You're
see
good.
you.
Oh,
we
okay.
hear you. You're fine.
Yeah. Basically we were at a point where we hadn't got a major deal, and Randy had got an offer through Vicky Hamilton to do he got a deal with Atlantic by himself for a band called Lost Boys that he put together, which eventually Jeff ended up playing guitar on it and writing a few of the songs for it. And that ended poorly. It got shelved for him. But that basically was the end of it. He went to do that, and at the same time, Jeff was asked to join Armored Saint.
Right.
So we had Jeff going over to Armored Saint, and Randy had just got a record deal. Matter of fact, here's a funny story about Back to Decline, is when we went to the premiere of Decline at the Cinerama Dome in Hollywood, Jeff was already a member of Armored Saint and Odin was done.
Wow.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, and that was at the premiere.
Oh,
so that's how close that period of time was to where we were imploding, which was basically what was happening during that just shooting it to a certain degree.
Yeah.
But that's basically what happened. And then Jeff went on to play with Dave. He actually replaced Phil.
Yeah.
And he played with Dave. He did one tour with Dave, and then Dave got sick. And then they recorded Symbol.
And that's like 80, it's late 80s at that point. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm gonna say sometime around 87 or 88.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Kind of spitballing, but I think that's about right.
That sounds right. The only way that I have to gauge is I was for a few years around that time, since 85, I was pen pals with John Bush.
Okay.
Pen pals.
Yeah. John's great.
Yeah, and he would keep me abreast on Saint things, because who's not an Armored Saint fan, right? I mean, and then you meet the guys and you're like, these guys are the coolest guys.
Right.
Who wouldn't want to hang out with these super fun, jovial, silly guys who are smart, anyway, so he was keeping me abreast on what was happening in Dave, and I did see that Delirious Nomad tour as a 4-piece, and then, but yeah, Jeff, I don't think I ever had met Jeff until he was an Armored Saint.
Yeah, that's possible, because we were, the Odin, we were kind of while we were participants in the goings on of the 80s in Hollywood, we were also fairly, we had a pretty tight-knit group.
Yes.
And we would have people come to our house for parties. We didn't go to a lot of people's places and stuff like that. So we were more reclusive, I guess, yet reachable. It's hard to explain, but that's probably my best way of putting it, which was probably why you didn't stumble across Jeff.
Well, and it just sounds smart. Sounds smart to me. It sounds like you're staying close to toilet, You're staying close to the couch. I don't think that I met Jeff until probably the recording of Symbol, actually.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's
probably.
yeah, because you guys were recording at the same time, weren't you, or about then?
Yeah, well, that in '88, that was when the Toys got picked up and were immediately taken out to Van Nuys Sound City, and so I was in touch with them. I was always, tugging on the apron strings of Bush, what are y'all doing? I'm in LA. I don't know anybody. What are we going to do? So I was, we just, when we weren't, in pre-production or recording, I was trying to, cause I didn't really know a whole lot of people out there. I had, I knew Gene Hoglan, who was, he's at Long Beach, he's right. not Hollywood, but I knew Gene and I knew some people in Downey, but I didn't really know anyone, because we're running back from the Valley to Hollywood, or it's not far, but that's what what was going on, and I don't think I had met any Odin proper at that point. Right. Yeah, took a minute.
Matter of fact, I think the first time I met you was when DC4 played in Austin, and that was the first time I had met you
with Rowan. Yeah. And you guys, that was a lovely time. That was a lovely time.
Yeah, it was a good time.
Yeah,
we went and had barbecue. Yeah,
at Rudy's.
Yeah,
yeah. I have pictures. I have pictures somewhere.
Yeah,
but this. Tell us about what you were kind of doing musically. Mm-hmm. After Odin, prior to LA Guns. That's a big chunk of years. Can you kind of sprinkle in what was going on in there? And if I missed something, I'm sorry.
No, not at all. So after Odin, Jeff was in Armored Saint, and then me and Jeff put a band together, another one. I look at everything me and him have done as like just one long progression.
Right.
And it was called Human Nature. We did one EP, which eventually turned into DC4. Well, actually, there was a band before that called Bird of Prey, which was more of a metal band, more of a power metal band.
Okay.
And we did 2 demos for that. We've never released those officially. I kind of want to digitize those and put them out.
Good idea.
And you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't want them to rot in tape.
No.
Yeah. And then we did Human Nature, which turned into DC4. And then Rowan joined, and we put out. I think DC4 has done. I want to say like three LPs and 2 EPs or something like that.
That's a lot of material.
Wow. That's
I thought. And then I was in Bullet Boys for 3 years and did a bunch of touring.
That's right. Yeah.
And then that's where I met Tracy, because we did a tour with Gunzo, which was Tracy and Rudy Sarzo's thing.
Oh, that's right.
And we shared a bus. And I became really good friends with Tracy. At night, I'd be up and we'd bullshit, and we became friends on the bus. And then after that, every once in a while, I would just text him to stay in contact. And then I got a text out of the blue one day that said, "Hey, what are you doing this summer?"
Right.
Yeah. That's how I got into LA Guns. So it was like Bullet Boys turned into LA Guns in a way.
Wow. So you did with LA Guns, was your first tour the Black Diamonds record?
My first tour was the first Kiefer. It was Tom Kiefer, us, and Faster Pussycat, and that was before Diamonds had come out.
Okay. Yeah.
So it was, I want to say it was 2022.
Okay. So
summer 2022, and I think Diamonds came out in 23.
Okay. Yeah, I saw that. I saw that tour in the same place I just saw you 2 weeks ago. Yeah, right, the same venue. Yeah. So you so for the sake of transparency, you don't play on the records. You're the live drummer with LA Guns, right? So so how does that arrangement work? I know that they had Adam Hamilton plays drums on the records, and I know he's got a gig where he stays home and he produces bands, and he's very good at what he does, and he's got a family and stuff, so it keeps him close to home. So you go out and play you do the road work. When you're learning the LA Gun songs for a tour, is there anything, do you try to stay as true to Adam's playing as the record, or do you just kind of use it as a foundation and throw in your own stuff, or how does that work?
I think for the most part, I try to keep it as close to, I try to keep the hooks.
Yeah,
right?
For sure.
And then it's going to feel like me. It's just, I play it the way I feel like it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And me and Johnny play well together. So the songs kind of take on their own story once we start playing it live.
Right.
And they're different, but overall it's the same song. So do parts get changed? Yeah. But that's kind of part of playing live. And Guns is a live band. There's no tracks. I'm not playing to a click. It's you go for it. You go up there and go.
Yeah.
And the more that each one of us can be each one of us, the better it's going to be as a whole.
Yeah.
So I'm not restricted in any way to play exactly like the records on anything that I do with Guns.
Yeah.
I think that's cool.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's us,
Yeah.
This is this incarnation of the band. And again, as a unit now, we've been doing this for I've been with them for a little over 3 years now. And it's become, it's settled. The glue is there.
Yeah.
And so now everybody knows how to follow each other, and it's a tight unit.
Yeah.
So we all respect each other as players. So I've never been told not to do something.
Wow,
Right.
that's big. That's big.
Yeah.
That's trust. That's
Yeah.
trust. Yeah.
I was going to say the same thing.
So
yeah.
the Adam connection is kind of a golden situation, because he's got a studio, the kit's mic'd up, it's dialed in, it sounds fucking like they need it to sound. And if Tracy's sending him a riff and they've got, they're putting together some things for, and they're getting excited about it, that is kind of like awesome. Nothing's going to get stagnant. How'd that go again? Oh, we got to wait for Shawn to bring his drums over so I can mic them up. See what I mean? That just sounds...
It's quicker.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it sounds like an easy... You know what? It sounds like it's a team with a machine that is working really well.
Right.
Yeah.
And...
That's what it is.
Yeah, hats off to that. Yeah. But I wanted to kind of, when a band or a few guys or someone just working with a drummer or sending riffs that, are just to a click, and I need a groove here, to a drummer to just throw something down. That means that song has never been played live because it's a germ.
Yeah.
It hadn't landed on anybody yet. It's a germ, right? You have to find that hook. It's a germ. So it's never been played live. By the time the record is done and you get the material, let's just fantasize and say you're the first fucker to hear it, and you're about to learn it so you can rehearse it and do a little bit of rehearsals before you get on the bus. These songs, again, have never, there's no legs. You don't know what they're going to feel like when you play them with a band, because they've never been played with a band. And that is your, and that is your open canvas.
Exactly. That's where we take over. We give it the live personality, I guess.
That's
you
right.
could say.
Yeah.
And again, some of the, I look back at when we were younger and what recording was, and, how much we rehearsed. And prior to getting a record deal or you were playing clubs every night with these songs and refining them and making them better and better and better. And that's why the first albums by so many bands are so freaking good, right? Because those songs are just worn and they're like like a good pair of shoes, right? At that point.
Yeah, industry folks used to tell me or just talk. I would hear people talk and say, and it's become like a thing that you hear, like, well, you have your whole life to write your first record.
Yeah. And
it's like, wait a minute.
Then you have like 8 months to write the second one.
Wait a minute. That hasn't been my experience, actually. Because when you think about, it's not about me, but when you think about the Toys, I was in the band like 4 months, and then we're shoved into a studio, you know. Yeah. So it's not always the case, and so it's a new thing all the time, right?
Yeah. Now, you know, like if I did a record, 2 records for a band called Social Disorder out of Sweden, and that's
cool.
me and Tracy plays on it. Rudy Sarzo plays on it.
Wow.
Dave Stone, who played keyboards on Long Live Rock and Roll and Rainbow Live.
Wow.
And then the mastermind behind it, Anders Leronblom, was in Killer Bee, which I did a record with and did the UK tour with several years back. But I get, you know, he sends me the tracks, he sends me the ideas to a click. And I go in and I throw down drum tracks for them and send them back, and they've turned into 2 records. And that's just that's how you do things now.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it's a weird adaptation because for me, it's like when I always associate drums with there's hooks that the singer does that the drums should catch. And it's so
1,000%.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's so often that the vocals aren't even written until after all that material's there. And then I'll get the stuff back and go, fuck, I really wish I could change this drum track. I really wish I could do this there instead of that, because it would fit better, it would lock better or whatever. And so the way I'm beginning to view these things is like, look, I'm going to send you a demo version of this. Send me the song back. I'll redo the drums at that point, because I think it's going to make a better song. Once you
100%.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
And I think that, like before, where you could go in and do scratch guitar and split, I think now you kind of need to do scratch drums and then go and redo the drums when the song's finished. That's just my perspective on it.
Yeah. In writing, the drums and the writing sessions should be redone after the vocals.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it.
I agree 100%. I've been saying that for years. It's like, if I could. And again, vocals are tied to drums, they're tied to everything.
I call it, you got to play the drummer has to play the riff.
Yeah.
You have to play the riff. And if the vocals have their own riff or hook or whatever, you can call it whatever you want. You know, the drummer needs to be green when the band is green. The drummer needs to be red when the band is red.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
What's that?
Talk about the leopard print or leopard skin album. I always want to call it leopard print for some leopard skin, the latest LA Guns record. When I saw you on tour, obviously LA Guns has a whole catalog of songs that you guys have to play. You only played 2 songs off the new album. Is there a song on Leopard Skin that, if there was room for it in the set as a drummer, that you would like to play? Is there a song on that album that's got drums that you
Good question.
Play live?
Yeah, well, I think there's one called Grinder on there that I like.
That's what I wanted to hear. That sounds like Bill Ward playing on that song.
Yeah, well, Bill Ward was important to me too. That's I didn't mention him earlier, and that was a big fault of mine.
No, that's fine. Yeah.
But, I think that one. I really wanted to play Lucky Motherfucker because I again, that goes back to my roots of kind of has a funky feel to it, and it feels good to play. I like playing that a lot. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, you played it. It's on the set list.
Yeah, we did that one, and we did Hit and Run. There you go.
I ended up with the set list that night. Yeah, Hit and Run's my favorite song on the record, by the way. I love that one, and I love The Masquerade. So as someone who joins LA Guns late in their career, and you've got all this catalog, to choose from to play, what are some of the songs, again, same question, but expanded out to the whole catalog? What are some of the LA Guns songs that don't get into the set list that you as a drummer wish you could play? Not necessarily just off the new album, but in general.
Yeah, there's a song I like called, I think it's Don't Do Me That Way, that I like a lot. I like Cuckoo.
Yeah.
There's so many of them. That's the thing about LA Guns. And I'm going to be honest with you. Before I joined the band, I knew like a limited catalog of LA Guns.
Right.
And then when I started playing with them, I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. There's this song. There's this song. There's this song. Oh, well, fuck, this song's really good. And the Walking the Dead, and so many songs that I'm like, wow, these would be fun to play.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy playing them live. All of this stuff live. There's not one song that I play with them that I go, oh, geez, really?
Yeah.
Which is.
You mean from back catalog? You mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The catalog is so solid. I mean,
it's rich.
It's a ton of good shit.
There's so many in there,
So good.
And it's hard to decide like sets and what we're going to play and all that stuff. So this is the set for probably this year. And then occasionally Tracy will go into No Mercy out of the blue, or Hellraiser's Ball, or something like that. Right in the middle of the set, he'll throw it at us. But that's basically the set we're doing this year.
When you said that you got to know Tracy while you were touring with Bullet Boys, and that was sort of that sort of led to you joining LA Guns. And all your time in Hollywood, as you said, you were born and raised there, came up through the club scene. Did you know Phil Lewis already, or not at all?
Not at all.
So you didn't really get to know him until you joined the band?
Yeah, matter of fact, I knew Johnny, Ace, and Tracy. And then when I got the gig, Ace was the first one to call me. And I said, okay, dude, I go, because I'm going to be honest with you. I got, I call it post-lead singer distress syndrome, okay? So almost every singer I've ever worked with, man, it's been a nightmare. I'm just saying. And they'll, but nothing against you, Jason.
No, none taken. I sometimes warn, I go, I might be hard to be in a band with. I mean, I don't know. I wish someone would go, I can't be in a band with you, and no one's ever said it. Maybe they're thinking it. I don't know.
But one of the first questions I asked Ace was, I go, okay, well, what about Phil? Right? Because I didn't know Phil. And he was like, oh, he's a peach, man. He's the easiest singer I've ever worked with. And if he wasn't my boss, I'd be saying the same thing. And I was like, oh, okay. And so Johnny calls me. Same question. I asked him the same thing. He gave almost verbatim the same answer. Yeah. And the fact is that Phil is absolutely the easiest, most professional singer I've ever worked with in my entire life. Wow. And I can't say enough about him as both a person and as a performer and a musician. I love the guy. He's been incredible.
That's so good to hear, because it seems like I've known Johnny for a number of years, and because of him, I've gotten to know the rest of the guys. And it seems like, and Johnny's told me the same thing. I've asked him, out of all the bands you've been in over the years, which one has been, the most enjoyable, the most fun? And he said, hands down, no questions, LA Guns, because everybody just seems to get along so well. And as we all know, it's not just about playing together well. It's about living together in a van on the road and being in each other's space all the time.
In a box, yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, to give, this review of Philip and like say it, and say it lovingly and be savvy to the business that you have to carry out when you're working, when you're, sure, it's fun, but it's a fucking job. Yeah. And you have to coexist, as we've underlined. This must mean that you've had some bad experiences in the past. And so you have something to compare it to.
Yes, I do.
But you've been with LA Guns 3 years now, and you're not the spring chicken. So, and you've been doing this your whole fucking life, Shawn. So,
Right.
you have had to deal with some things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Well, that's why he can appreciate when an opportunity like this comes up, and Phil and the rest of the guys are so easy to work with.
Right. But in other people's case, people who have been in the same band their entire life, they don't have anything to compare it to. Is
right.
Kind of my point.
Yeah, exactly. It's from a band standpoint, this particular unit, along with our crew, is really become a second family.
Yeah,
and it's mutual. We all feel the same way. There's I don't know. It's a very happy, without sounding dorky, situation for all of us. Nobody's miserable in this band. You know, Tracy's is awesome. He's a sweetheart. Everybody in the band is just really, we all get along really, really, really well. And this tour we just did has to be by far the most pleasant tour I've ever done in my life, and that's part of the reason why.
Wow! And you know who else wins? Big words. You know who else wins when all that happens is the fans, because I think it comes across in the show. If you guys love each other and you're up there having a good time as a unit all together, it can't help but come across in the show. You know?
Yeah, I think so too, and I think that's why. You know, well. This last tour we did, we were headlining places that when I joined, we were opening for Kiefer.
Mm-hmm.
So the we picked up some momentum, and I think part of that is LA Guns has always been a good live band. Yep. And I think that we've managed to recapture a lot of that energy, and I think it's getting noticed.
Yeah.
So that's the best way I can explain it.
For my money, you guys in the Michael Monroe band are the two best touring bands out there as far as the rock genre, the kind of music that I enjoy.
Those are some big words.
Those are great bands, man. I've never been let down. So one last quick question. I know we got to let you go, but I wanted to ask you, this is totally off topic, but I know I follow you on social media, and you're not a bad cook.
Yeah.
So, how did your interest in cooking come about? How did you get into that?
Well, as a drummer, you need a job. Okay, we break things, and they break often, and it's expensive. And there's not very many drummers that I know that don't have some sort of side career or growing up. Drums are expensive. It's an expensive habit.
Right.
So what happened is I got into movie catering out of the blue. I was always I used to cook with my mom. I was always into doing it. I liked it. I liked food, and I had two other brothers, and I learned very early that if I learned how to make my own food, it was easier for me to eat rather than wait for my mom to have to feed all of us, right?
Right.
So basically, I ended up working in the movies. I worked as a location caterer on big movies. I became a chef on the truck where I would run the whole thing. I made the menus, everything. Then I ran 2 restaurants for 10 years as an executive chef and a GM.
Wow.
So that's where my food experience comes from. Is I've always been, it's it's creative. And I know a lot of drummers that cook, and I don't know what it is, but there's quite a few. Frankie Rinaldi used to be a hell of a cook. There's a lot of them out there that cook. It's funny.
Wow.
Jerry from Kicks cooks too. He's always posting stuff too. I don't know if you follow him.
Wow.
But that was my moneymaker, if you will.
Were you the main chef feeding the cast and crew on any big Hollywood movies that we heard of?
If I wasn't a main, I was a second, and I worked on X-Men. I worked on a movie called Story of Us, which was Bruce Willis and Michelle Pfeiffer. I worked on some of Castaway, all all the scenes from the FedEx thing.
Oh, yeah.
I did that. Yeah, I did. What's it? Strikes Back. I can't remember their name for some reason.
Jay and Silent Bob.
Yeah, Jay and Silent Bob Strikes Back. I did that movie.
Wow.
That was a lot of fun to work on.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did a lot of movies. Worked on Jag, the TV show, for 2.5 years. I mean, it was a lot of videos. I did Deftone videos. I did everybody, Michael McKnight to. I mean, it just goes on and on. Like, wow. I did a lot of really, good and commercials.
What would you say is your specialty?
I don't even know anymore. I stopped doing that probably 12 to 15 years ago. And so now I just cook for myself. I like making Italian food. And I love fish. I like seafood. So anything with seafood or
I'm coming over.
Like a fan.
Yeah, right.
I'm coming over, bro.
Yeah.
And barbecue. I got my egg here. I'm on my patio right now, and on my right I have a gas grill, and on my left is a smoker and a big green egg, and
whatever the situation calls for, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Well, Shawn, we won't keep you any longer. I know I told you we'd only keep you an hour, and you've been nice enough to stay with us a little over. So thanks so much for that, man. It was great to see you a couple of weeks ago. I highly encourage anyone that hasn't seen you on this tour to go see you. The band is on fire. You guys are doing a great job, kicking ass every night. And I wish you continued success. It's a pleasure getting to know you, and I'm glad to see you in such a great band and doing so well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you're the last guy from LA Guns that we've had, that we've been waiting to get on the podcast. We've had the entire band now. And we've even had Adam Hamilton, who's kind of the behind the scenes guy from LA Guns. So
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, we've got you covered. And we've had your brother. I mean, we're just going down the wish list here, man. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us. Congratulations on everything that's going so great with LA Guns. You guys are doing great, and I do appreciate your time today. On behalf of my co-host Jason McMaster, I'm Metal Dave, along with our special guest today, Shawn Duncan from LA Guns on the Talk Louder podcast.